Hello and welcome to ATARC's webinar series. Today, we will learn how modern application security tools are helping agencies cover more of the software development lifecycle in order to improve security posture and achieve compliance. My name is Kirsten Patton, and I'm the Working Group Program Manager here at ATARC, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's panel. ATARC stands for the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, and we are a nonprofit that facilitates collaboration between government, industry, and academia in order to accelerate technology modernization initiatives. We provide ongoing opportunities for cross-agency collaboration through on-site interaction, learning, and market research. I would like to welcome all of our attendees and give a special thanks to the Invicti team for helping us put together today's webinar. Before we begin, I just want to encourage each of you out there in the audience to please submit questions of your own in the Q&A section of this platform. Also, if you would like to receive your CPE credits for attending today's event, make sure that you answer each of the poll questions as they come up throughout the day's session. And now I would like to go through introductions of each of our panelists. So if our panelists could please come on camera. There we go. I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself. So please share with the audience your name, what agency you're with, your position there, and anything else you'd like our audience to know today to kick things off. And we'll start with Chris, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. Chris here. I am with U.S. Transportation Command, and I'm the Chief of DevSecOps and Enterprise Transformation. And I've been with the organization for about 2.5 years, and we've been involved with quite a few things in the realm lately, and really excited to be involved with that and excited to be here today.
Excellent. And then we'll go over to Dr. Edwards.
Yes, good afternoon. Greg Edwards from the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. And it's my pleasure to join you all in this esteemed group. Thanks to Invicti for your support and sponsorship of this event. We always enjoy the opportunities of being able to participate in these events. I've been with FEMA about 1.5 years as the Chief Information Security Officer, only for the past 6 months. I take this opportunity to remind you of the FEMA mission, and that's helping people before, during, and after disasters. We find ourselves in that business every day. And we're focused on an aspiration of building a FEMA that our nation needs. And, I've told you about our motto, but what the high level objectives that our administrators is looking for us to support. We're talking about the theme of equity, climate resilience, and then of course readiness would be foremost in our mind at a high level. In my own area, as a CISO, we are focused on cloud security in particular, as we develop our hybrid cloud environment. And we're modernizing the access capabilities that we have for our applications and services. Read that as identity and access management. Very heavily focused on multi-factor authentication. And then we need to always continue to optimize our authorization process. And so looking for software as a service type tools and capabilities help us there. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. And then we'll move over to Nicole next.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am the Chief Technology Officer with the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Inspector General. And I've been with OIG for 3 years, and I've been in the CTO role for about the past 6 months. Before joining OIG, I served as the Deputy Chief Enterprise Architect for the Department of Homeland Security. I'm very passionate about enabling business with secure and innovative technology. So I'm also looking forward to discussion today. And my current focus is on building a zero trust roadmap and a cloud ecosystem framework for HHS OIG. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And then we will wrap up introductions with Ted.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having me in. So Ted Rutsch, I'm the Federal Sales Manager here at Invicti Security. And I'd like to thank all the panelists for joining us today and ATARC working with us to put this together. A little bit of background on me. I've been delivering IT security solutions to the federal government for over 20 years, spanning a broad range of technologies from the standard perimeter and cloud security solutions and threat detection, but more recently into the zero trust and application security because it's become so paramount. And that's really what drew me to Invicti. When you take a look at the historical view of the IT market, there's clearly been an explosion of web-enabled applications because of those folks migrating to the cloud for its obvious benefits, right? So when 15 years ago, there were 50 million web apps, today there's over 2 billion, right? And that's really agencies like, HHS and the DoD embracing online forums and customer web portals to get a better customer experience. So with that growth, we've seen a lot of vulnerabilities come forth as well. So with research showing 96% of web apps have at least one vulnerability, and we've all seen that recently with Log4j, all it takes is one for a malicious hacker to get in. So this is why we're encouraging agencies to scan and secure all of their web apps regularly. And that's where we specialize, right? We've got over 15 years of experience in delivering security solutions for application development, or the affectionately known as DevSecOps. And we do this by helping our customers integrate and automate that process into their software development lifecycle. So what we're going to share with you today is, the feedback we get from our hundreds of customers that currently have migrated off of their legacy manual approach to DevSecOps and taken a modern approach that helps them communicate and collaborate better, right? As well as improve their software release cycles and ATOs. So we look forward to sharing some of that information with you today. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Ted. And I just realized this is our first webinar back from the new year. So happy new year, everyone. Really exciting to be here. Okay, let's kick it off first with our poll question number 1. I believe it has something to do with challenges, which will feed into our first question that I'll pose later. But for those at home, please go ahead and answer. What do you think is the biggest security challenge for government agencies? So go ahead and answer that if you see the options on your screen. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg first. I want to ask, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that agencies face when integrating security into their SDLC? And maybe you can share with us what SDLC is as well, for those who don't know.
I think it's the software development lifecycle.
Yep.
And Ted said it all quite well. I think a large challenge, and one that we see in FEMA in particular, is really trust with the security teams to allow planning to occur within that software development lifecycle. And software development lifecycle, let's say it starts at the initiation phase, and that's where the requirements are being developed. Well, there can't just be the software functional and technical requirements. There need to be the security requirements that start at the very, very beginning of that phase. Now, why have we not, we all know this, I think, in this business, but why have we not embraced that more fully? What I found in FEMA, in my experience, is it's a trust factor. It's also that the programs have timelines and milestones, and it's quite difficult sometimes to wedge in the security testing that's necessary in those milestones, but it is so essential. And so what we find is that we get to a point as to where the software has been developed, it has been tested, but without any security oversight. And then we're trying to authorize it. We're trying to allow it into our environment. And that's when it appears that we have a difficult time, because now we have to go back to the beginning and start talking about the requirements and why it was developed that way. So I think that is still a huge challenge that we all face, and that trust is a large part of it, but also it's us understanding that security will affect the implementation timeline. I don't want to say it will lengthen that, okay? But it may. Other things also lengthen the software development lifecycle also. Those things that have to be accepted, and we have to talk about software development and implementation at the end state that is now delivered in a secure fashion, and you've saved some time from that perspective, would be my input.
Thank you. Chris, would you like to weigh in on that one as well?
Sure. Well said, Dr. Edwards. 100% with you on that. I'll just simplify it from my angle then, just kind of adding to what he had mentioned. I kind of view it in two different ways. And so I would view it from the technical perspective of actually implementing, that technology, those processes into the software development lifecycle. And then one other would be incorporating those actual human resources, those security experts into the process as well. So the first would be, Dr. Edwards mentioned, how you got to incorporate that and how you're going to have to probably adjust. I mean, from my perspective, you're going to have to adjust those contracts, those PWSs, to get the skill sets in order to incorporate the security from the very beginning. And so static application security testing, dynamic application security testing, functional testing, container security testing, and then the service mesh and everything that comes with that. That's a skill set, that you need. And in the DoD, I think we would consider that more of a modern skill set. And so that can be a challenge, And so then on the other side would be the security personnel. Today, in my experience in different DoD entities, is that those people are typically siloed from the developers. They're not really interacting as much. And our security professionals today are dealing a lot with the RMF process and checking some things off. And we really need to change that for them to be more actively involved in the security of the development process from the very beginning.
Thank you, Chris. Looks like we have one audience question just came through, and we'll go ahead and address that while we're here. What kind of specific security objectives can be added to contracts in order to improve the incentives to include deeper security involvement from the beginning? I see Chris nodding his head. So Chris, maybe you want to provide some feedback on that first?
Yeah, so this is something that my team, we have, hundreds of applications here, and they're titled as programs of record. Maybe it's an industry thing in the government, but they're programs of record. And you have a program manager that oversees the contract. And so they're coming to us screaming, well, what can I do to adjust the contract? What kind of language do I need to put in here? How can we provide, incentives? How can we make these objectives clear? And I think that what we try to do is we say, okay, here are the skill sets that you need. First and foremost, you need developers that understand, DevSecOps, or of course, agile development would be great, but then, the DevSecOps on top of that, and what it actually means to incorporate that security, that baked in security. What kind of, so those objectives would be unit testing, for example. What percentage of your code do you need to ensure that you have unit testing? And then we go through what are called control gates. So we clearly list from our perspective what we require from a control gate perspective of, okay, you need to do this. When you do code commits, you have to do this, and your source code repository must do this. And so there's a lot of things that we clearly delineate needs to happen all the way to the point of deploying into production. And so we try to make that a little bit clear, of course, but not being too specific in the contracts, but we try to make that clear in terms of what security objectives we're looking for. I could, if people need help with that or want some more examples, I could certainly provide that. We got countless examples of how we've accomplished that here.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on now. In the race to shift security left, you sometimes run the risk of leaving the rest of your code base exposed. So Nicole, I want to turn this over to you now. What are some steps to take to ensure that you're not missing any critical elements such as third-party code?
So thank you. So with this increased focus on security, it's a big cultural shift, and we need to integrate, it from the start of the project, not just in implementation. So at HSS OIG, one of the things we've done is worked with our enterprise architecture team. We've adopted an enterprise architecture principle around focus on implementing security at all levels of the projects, planning, and the layers of protection from the offset. So we're also working with embedding cybersecurity expertise into our DevOps team to work closely with developers that build products with security in mind. It's important that they have that security mindset as they're building the products. it's critical that those developers are empowered with policies and automated testing tools, as we've heard, allowing them to, implement security early in the development lifecycle and be responsible for the security of applications that they're building, the products that they're building. And this will allow us to secure that security vulnerabilities are dealt with, and that we have visibility into the products and the open source and third-party code components of the products that they're building. With the advancement of development pipeline tools, allowing for DevOps to continually build with a lot of effort, complete builds with a lot of effort. A takeaway is that we should deploy often as needed while leveraging the tools that support continuous integration and continuous delivery, and things like elastic compute, A/B and canary deployments. And this will all allow us to limit risk by having an infrastructure as code mentality, training and performing security validation at every step of the development lifecycle while delivering valuable features to our customers.
That's great. Thank you, Nicole. And Ted, coming from the industry side, do you have a perspective on this that you'd like to share as well?
We do. That was great feedback, Nicole. One of the things that we consistently hear from our customers is, they don't know what to protect if they can't identify it, right? So dealing with, and how do you trust third-party code that you're incorporating into your own website? So being able to know who the owners are and the developers and how strong their code is when it's you're referencing it within your website is key. So being able to identify those assets that are third-party ties into your website is very, very important. So being able to identify those and incorporate those into your regularly testing programs, into your software development, would be a good stride in the right direction in order to deal with third-party code.
Great. Thank you, Ted. Let's go ahead and pop up our second poll question then, and we'll have our audience answer that one. Should be up shortly. There we go. What is or was the main thing holding you back from purchasing a web application security testing solution or upgrading a legacy solution in 2021? So folks at home, please answer that, whether it was lack or unclear budgeting or lack of executive buy-in or too many vendors, etc. So Anthony Burley, hey Anthony, he just wrote in, he's curious on the use of DevSecOps tools for SaaS offerings, especially SaaS offerings that are low code, no code. So our panelists, I'll just open this up to whoever would like to take a swing at it. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Ted, but I saw you were on mute. Oh, now you just muted yourself. But anyone who would like to answer Anthony's question, the floor is all yours.
Yeah. I really think that's a question for industry, so I will let them answer. for government, sorry.
Yeah. So just take a moment to digest that question, but any of your thoughts or experiences around DevSecOps tools for SaaS offerings?
This is Greg. I don't have a tool per se, but we are excited in government to take advantage of SaaS offerings. And the expectation is that industry is skilled, as you are, in the DevSecOps, and I'm going to call it secure by design. But you're skilled in that area. And just because it's a SaaS offering, there's still some true security testing that came to bear, and that you have the credentials to show that to us as it occurred. And I've discovered some challenges as we begin to authorize systems when we don't understand the security posture, if you would, of the software. This is getting into the third-party applications, so to speak. And so not a tool necessary, but there are tools in the marketplace that scan the software and provide results. And those results are what we actually, in FEMA, we require that we get some information on them from the SaaS offerings.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kirsten, I think I will jump in real quick. The Obviously, as Dr. Edwards just mentioned, there are tools on the market that can obviously need to follow the trends of web-enabled applications. A lot is going to the cloud, a lot is going into containerized environments. So being able to deploy in those environments for the obvious benefits of burstability and scalability and on-demand is obviously key. So there are definitely tools that can follow that trend and help you scan, test, and remediate problems within your SaaS environment. In terms of low code, no code, I know that's relatively a newer topic. That people are starting to talk about that, but so I can't really speak there. I know Chris just went off me. Maybe he has some comments there.
Yeah, sure. Just one quick thing on the SaaS perspective. So I'm not going to mention a specific tool, but a part of the challenge in taking advantage of some SaaS offerings is the FedRAMP approval process. And we were really excited about moving towards a SaaS model for a DevSecOps, kind of an end-to-end tool. And we've had a great relationship with the vendor, but from a SaaS perspective, we really can't take advantage of it until we go through the FedRAMP process, which not only requires a lot of time on the vendor, but it requires quite a bit of time on your government personnel if they're willing to sponsor the FedRAMP approval process.
All right, well, thank you all for your responses and thank you for your questions. So please continue to send them in. And now moving on, my next question, which Dr. Edwards, I'll start with you again. What are some of the things that agencies or yourself and your experience have done in order to stay on top of cybersecurity trends and threats? So if you could provide any insight into that, that would be great.
Sure, thank you, Kirsten. I'd share with you what we've been doing in FEMA. We love, as I said in the beginning, communicating with industry, and it's really, we don't specialize in research into the cyber trends and threats, nor new technology. And so we really find those leaders in the marketplace, and they publish papers and books and things of that nature. And we have collaborative sessions with them to learn what's truly some of the threats, and some of this becomes classified, and that's okay as well. But that's where we look to truly find out what's going on in that trending area. Now, once we understand that, we are the government, and so we have some processes that we have to follow. And what we do in FEMA is we built a roadmap. And it's our IT roadmap. In that IT roadmap, I've ensured that there is some security as part of that as well. And so we have our plan for the next 4 to 5 years based upon what we've seen this year from the research that we've been able to glean. And we're identifying those tools, techniques, capabilities, services, whatever you want to call them, across a roadmap that we plan to implement. Fully understanding that some will mature, some will not, but we also put in place some prototyping, some testing of that capability along the way. And if it proves itself out, of course, then we continue it in our implementation cycle. But that's so key to us in having that roadmap, because we have to have the funding, and we have a modernization fund that feeds us as we implement things according to our roadmap. So I guess I would just say that roadmap and testing of solutions and a prototype has been effective for us and staying up with those cybersecurity trends and threats. And then, as I said, looking for the big guys who truly specialize in that area.
Excellent. Well, thank you for answering that one for us. All right, let's see over in the chat. The chat is popping off. We've got another question from James. Let's see. Do panelist agencies require FedRAMP High for SaaS AppSec tools? Is moderate level something that they can use? Okay, so do any of our panelists know of their agencies requiring FedRAMP High for SaaS AppSec tools?
In FEMA,
No,
we FedRAMP High.
Sorry, I think I heard
Oh.
Dr. Edwards first, and then we'll hear from Nicole.
I was just going to say in FEMA, we require FedRAMP High.
FedRAMP High at FEMA, okay. And Nicole, what were you about to?
Oh, at HHS-OIG, we're at the moderate level. So
Okay, moderate level. Got it. Thank you. James, if you have a follow-up question, feel free. All right. And then what metrics have you found to be useful in measuring the effectiveness for DevSecOps in terms of efficiency, cost effectiveness, security effectiveness, or usability? So that's a good question. Are you all looking at metrics? Chris.
Yeah, I'll just keep it simple. For our command, the primary thing that we try to look at is delivery capability. Are we delivering capability faster than we were before? And then of course, from there we say, okay, and was it secure when done and all these other things. But the big thing is delivering capability to our users. And of course, here at US Transportation Command, we got that global mission. So are those folks on the ground? Are they able to attain and achieve something better as a result of our developers getting them capability faster, right? So that's really the big thing we look at right away, first and foremost here.
Right, great. And then one last audience question before we move on, or I'm sorry, Nicole. Oh no, never mind you. Ted, you're off mute. Did you want to weigh in before I go on?
Oh yeah, just based on that question about efficiency, cost effectiveness, security, I think one other important thing in there is reliability. Having a platform that you can rely on and maintains your security policies effectively is key. You obviously don't want to build a whole security policy and then have it be blown away for some random reason, but also making sure it's up and running in real time, all the time, to keep your DevSecOps secure as you go through that. So just wanted to put reliability in there as well.
Thanks, Ted. And then Chris, this one might be for you, but you mentioned FedRAMP. If there was a DevSecOps platform available, but not yet sponsored to go through FedRAMP or DoD impact level assessment, what can industry do to gain your federal organization interest to present this tool for sponsorship? So what holds your organization back from sponsorship?
Yeah, this is a simple answer. It's just time. And I mean, really, we have a security group that goes through that process, and we were trying to push for a specific tool to happen, and come to find out that that entity or that team, they mentioned that the last time they had done and gone through the FedRAMP approval process, it took them 1.5 years. So it's sad. It's a very sad reality, but that's, I think, what it comes down to. So if we're going to push something more on them, it's just going to be the concern for time.
All right, thank you. And then another question. Do any of the agencies represented here today use DORA metrics, which I trying to Google real quick, but Dora the Explorer keeps coming up. So if anyone knows what DORA metrics are and if you use them, maybe you could share some insight into that. Nope, no use of DORA metrics. All right, so Brian, who asked that question, maybe if you want to elaborate in a follow-up, we could try and answer that one for you. Moving on, have any of your agencies achieved a continuous ATO? And if you needed to push a new mission, capability, or patch, how fast could that be done? In hours, days, weeks? Any experience with this? Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize, but yes, the continuous ATO process is something that we're very interested in. There haven't been very many DoD entities that have achieved that. So you look at Platform One, right? They've done that with their party bus capability, right? So they've been able to achieve a continuous ATO. There's another organization out there that's DoD or government related, and they are called Team Bespin. And they are a branch off from Kessel Run. So some people may be familiar with Kessel Run. And so these entities have achieved a continuous ATO. And so what we're doing here is we're actually working with Platform One, they're and leveraging what's called their Big Bang capability, essentially platform as a service. And so we're going through right now, working with our CISO, our Chief Information Security Officer, working with their Chief Information Security Officer, we're working to get that platform set up, and we're working to accredit it right now. And so you go through the 3 Ps, you credit the process, the people, and the platform. And so that's what we're doing at this point in time, connecting what we can to the RMF processes as well. And it's just changing the way that our security people are viewing. They're like, oh my God, this is totally different, right? It's not normal for them to do RMF in this way, but that's exactly where we're going. We do not have it yet. We have not achieved it yet. That's just where we're going, and we feel pretty good about our direction at this point.
Thank you, Chris. And for anyone interested in what DORA metrics are, I did find out it is DevOps Research and Assessment. So there's a new acronym for you all. Nicole, did you have anything you'd like to share?
Just to add, we are also kind of working towards continuous ATO. That's definitely on our roadmap, and we don't have that now, but we're definitely working towards that, and that's our vision.
Excellent, thank you. So let me, Ted, go ahead. Did you want to add anything?
Oh yeah, just we have pretty extensive experience supporting our customers in the DoD and civilian agencies, helping them achieve and maintain their ATOs, and those pursuing new ATOs. We've been through that process as well. So if you need any more background on how to more quickly achieve those, please reach out.
Thank you. Oh, and this is great. I'm getting a whole education on the DORA metrics right now. So thank you all. We're definitely learning something new today. All right, let's take a moment and pop up our third poll question just to knock that one out. Do you feel your organization or a cybersecurity team has challenges with silos or lack of communication around security needs? I think it was Chris who might have mentioned that earlier, but yeah, what did the panelists think? What's your experience with that right now? Has it gotten better or worse with constant telework? And what have you done to kind of mitigate these challenges? And this is opening the floor to any of our panelists who would like to address that one.
Okay. From a FEMA perspective, we've thought about it, and we really can't say that things have gotten worse. Initially, people felt like it was, oh, well, you're working from home. How can I secure this? How can I secure that? How am I going to allow you to do all of those things? And we reflected on our telework policy that we had in place, and we discovered that we were already doing it, just not doing it at the scale. And something simple that I mentioned is printing at home, as an example. We struggle with approving the ability for people to be able to print at home, not just because of the hard copy, just because of wanting to, of course, control and know all of the assets on our network and not being able to do that in everyone's household. So we had to change our mindset a little bit, in that, the mindset is you must know, what it is before you can begin to secure it or control it. And we work very, very hard to get access to all of the assets to know that they're there. And then we have all of these security controls that we put in place to be able to monitor and ensure that they're locked down. But we felt that we, at the end, had to adjust our risk-based thinking as we allow more and more people to work from home.
Thank you, Greg. All right, so moving on to our next question, I'm going to turn this one over to Ted. This is about talent in the industry. So the cybersecurity industry is seeing a talent shortage right now, which is leading to skill gaps. And well, I guess it was a presumptuous question, because the next part to that question is, have you seen this for yourself? And if so, what steps have you taken to overcome this talent shortage?
Sure. So, we regularly hear from our customers that there's a massive talent shortage out there, right? Especially the experienced good ones. It's a highly competitive environment trying to get that top talent in your agency. They're spending a lot of, obviously, money on professional services out of system integrators and third-party vendors, trying to supplement that until they can bring that talent in-house. But that's really where modern tools can come in and help bridge the gap between, if those senior engineers are, you just don't have you're not fortunate enough to have those in your environment, or we're hearing a lot about that talent retiring and that knowledge not coming up to speed in some of the junior engineers as well. But technology can really help bridge the gap in terms of doing a lot of the work that talent is responsible for, such as validating vulnerabilities and integrating and managing the tickets, going through the process of the entire software development lifecycle. The getting rid of the mundane and freeing up their time so they can do more proactive things is going to be a big help to those who are really struggling with finding talent.
Thank you, Ted. That's great insight. All right, let me just check the chat real quick to make sure we're not missing anything. Okay, so Nicole, I'm going to throw this question over to you. Developer enablement is a key part of application security success. So how do you break down silos between security and development in order to ensure developers have the tools and processes necessary to write more secure code?
Thank you. So we've been working on attacking silos by using some change management practices, improving the way we do documentation, and really working on building that trust and respect through the teams. We really need the security and development personnel to work collaboratively together to understand each other's perspectives, because a lot of times they weren't understanding each perspectives to understand how to work together collaboratively. Also, we're trying to make sure that the developers have formal security skills. So to make sure that they have training in the areas like secure coding practices, security tools, and cyber hygiene. And so we talked about automating and integrating security scans directly into the pipelines really allows the developers to stay in the tool set they're comfortable with to deliver secure products. And also making sure that they have the needed access to dynamic and static testing results, and also things like kind of making it fun or interesting, actually kind of rewarding and recognizing those teams that are doing good security practices, not just highlighting. So kind of really giving that culture of security is part of everyone's job, and the developers and those individuals need to work together to deliver secure products for our organization.
That's great. Thank you, Nicole. And Ted, from the industry perspective, do you have insight into this question as well?
I apologize, Kirsten. Can you repeat the question? I was actually busy looking at the chat.
Oh, yeah, of course. It was a little lengthy anyways. So basically, I just asked, how do you break down silos between the security and development in order to ensure that the developers have the tools and the processes necessary to write more secure codes?
It's the age-old war between engineering and security, right? Engineers want to put their applications out as fast as possible, and security steps in and delays the process forever. So the best thing that we really see our customers doing, and Chris mentioned this earlier, is there's this disconnect between the AppSec team and the DevOps teams, right? So improving the communication and collaboration between those teams so they start working together is actually really key. We've seen it time and again where, the AppSec team presses a button, runs a scan, delivers a report, and wash their hands of it, right? And then the DevOps teams need to try and figure out how to remediate all those problems. So if you could integrate and automate a lot of that process, pulling in their issue tracking systems and pulling in their CI/CD environments and letting them work in the environments they have today so they can collaborate there, it definitely helps them remediate problems faster, identify problems faster, and obviously, in the long run, the ideal thing is to build a stronger website, right? So, that collaboration communication is key. I totally agree.
Thank you so much, Ted. Okay, moving on. So this one is for Greg. Greg, how do you keep up with compliance and changes to federal regulations when approaching application security?
Excellent question. This is really, really hard work, but we shouldn't take it as though we're chasing our tails. we accept in FEMA that there's no 100% compliance, okay? We chase the numbers, but at the end of the day, we're not going to achieve 100% in terms of compliance. But the federal regulations, of course, they change, and it's not worth your time to try and resist those as well. And so we embrace them, and we set up some plans of actions and milestones, to be quite honest, the POAMs that we all know in the cyber world. And we try and manage those POAMs to try and stay up with all of the activity. Now, prioritization, characterization of those vulnerabilities and threats are very, very important to allow us to know what we take on first and what we take on second, et cetera. And via that, we're able to go forward. We have over 100 programs that we're kind of managing through the life cycle, and they are in various stages of being compliant. I'm interested in a visualization of how we can manage an enterprise like that with those various states. And so very interested in talking with the industry about how we can better manage that change that's going on. Spreadsheets are not the answer. We have many, many spreadsheets. We have a lot of experts. I do not like spreadsheets, but we have a lot of experts on spreadsheets, and that's how we're essentially managing where we stand with those programs. Linking them to security controls that we have to also pay attention to, because that's the reason that they were created, was to address some weaknesses, some vulnerability in that particular area. And then there's the age-old vulnerability management system. And so we just rely upon that system as it will to help us gauge where we are and pull forward metrics. There are some tools and capabilities in vulnerability management that we are also interested in seeing how we can leverage those to further automate those processes and get more enriching information so we can better manage the overall environment. Managing what's important to us first, second, and then third, and doing that from an enterprise perspective, not having each application have to worry about it by themselves per se, and because they're doing development work. And again, back to trust, they see that all of these changes coming in are really interfering with their ability to do what? It's what they should be doing, is developing and delivering capability in the FEMA world for our survivors.
Thank you, Greg. We have another audience question I would like us to address, and this one is from Jeff, and he asks, how are you addressing the White House Cyber Executive Order requirements on software bill of materials, SBOM, and the growing use of open source? So for our panelists online, is this something that you've considered to this point or thought about?
I mean, we're looking at solutions so that we can kind of secure solutions that will provide that supply chain analysis and look into those. We're not totally there yet, but that's definitely somewhere that we're looking to meet that EO and look into the solutions that can provide us better supply chain visibility and management.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Chris or Dr. Edwards, do you have anything for that one?
Yeah, I was going to add that it has started with us and really, finding out what all our assets are. And there was a huge data call that we all are responding to, such that we know, what steps to take. And, what we're uncovering, of course, is perhaps what he's referring to, a lot of the open source code that perhaps we weren't tracking as closely because it's kind of embedded a little deeper within the applications. And once we understand that, then discussions are beginning now with where are we, have we moved too far to the right, as an example, from an open source perspective. I don't have an answer to that, but it was just a question that has been raised. When you see things like the Log4j and begin to think longer term about that. So I think from a FEMA perspective, we're still at the stage of let's identify all of the software that is within our environment and perhaps go a little deeper than we've gone before. We know that there is some open source application services. A lot of that we depend upon, again, with I guess what I describe as those public facing services that we need to deliver. And that's not going to go away. Now, what to do about it is the question that is left unanswered.
Thank you. And Ted?
Just want to jump in, when looking at open source, I think it goes back to our conversation earlier about trusting where that open source technology is coming from and how it's helping you. There are capabilities out there like software composition analysis that can help you look at some of your open source and some of that code that you're leveraging to try and help you with your DevSecOps environment. So a lot of modern tool sets are starting to incorporate that. You tend to find it a lot with popular SaaS tools, but you see the DaaS vendors also starting to incorporate that as well, and leveraging those capabilities. So just wanted to add that in there.
Thank you. And we have less than 15 minutes left. So for those who have any other questions, please send them in quickly before we run out of time. Ted, I was actually going to turn the next question over to you. If you could please speak to any unique challenges that modern AppSec tools can help solve when it comes to automation and reporting.
I'm sure. Yeah, I can jump in here. Obviously, we're all in this for the compliance game. Right? We're trying to help federal agencies be compliant. So the better metrics that you can provide and the data that shows how you're helping agencies move towards compliant for things like this STIG, for NIST 853 requirements. Ever since Biden put out his executive order last May, there's been a monthly release from either NIST or CISA or OMB that are all pushing towards, complying and focusing on integrating and automating a lot of your reporting into your overall DevSecOps process. So the nice thing about the modern approach is that a lot of vendors are taking is to incorporate that automatically. And so you can automatically export reports that show how your vulnerabilities are matching up against some of those requirements in DISA-STIG, in 853, and print those off and show how you can be compliant.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And did anybody else want to answer that question while we're here? Dr. Edwards?
Well, I promised my operations portfolio lead that I would bring up a challenge that she has presented to us. And she's interested in some capability that will allow us to prevent assets from being connected to the enterprise. We all know of some tools today that allow us to manage connections, let's just say USB drives and things of that nature. But it's when you have a large enterprise, and from a FEMA perspective, we have 10 regions, and those 10 regions have their own IT departments, and then they sometimes have their own environments with IT, and then they also connect to the enterprise with services. And so the thought process is some automated way of, I won't say so much preventing, but it's more managing the ability of someone who has system administrative privileges to make changes, and then knowing about those changes that have occurred in that cycle. I'm not aware of a tool that presents us with that type of level of granular detail and understanding of what's going on from an enterprise perspective. Certainly the shift to the cloud helps you with that, but we're not all fully in the cloud today. And so we're trying to manage our on-prem environments in that hybrid world at the same time.
Thank you for those insights. All right, so we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure everyone has enough time to speak during this wrap-up portion. So take a few minutes each and share with me one thing that you learned today during this discussion, or something that struck you as interesting. And then also one thing that you really want to see happen and or drive home to our audience to help encourage, change for the better. So this will be our final round of, takeaways, if you will. And we'll start off with Chris, please.
Yeah, sure, of course. So actually, the thing that I learned is actually something very specific. So thank you. Let me look at the chat again. I want to thank, was it Jeff? Maybe it was, okay, Brian. So actually, thank you for bringing up the IaaS, so SaaS, DaaS. I'm just going to be transparent on the IaaS is not something I had really looked into or even understood. I was looking into it as we were here, and so thank you. So that's something I learned today, and that's something I need to take back to the team and see if, hey, we need to start digging into this. So thank you for that. But when it comes to something, I suppose I'd want to leave to the people here today, just from my perspective. I'm, initially when I came to this field in the government, anyways, about 2.5 years ago, I had some pretty big concerns on if we were going to be successful. As you can imagine, cultural challenges can be very difficult. People love doing what they're used to doing. So when you go to your security team and you say, hey, there's a new way to do the RMAP process, we can get a continuous ATO, and they look at you and say, never say continuous ATO because it's impossible. Conditional ATO, but not continuous ATO. That's when you think, oh my gosh, this is going to be really hard. And so we've come a long way since then. And so I'm really hopeful that for those that may be watching that maybe feel like, this is really hard, or don't even know how to get started, or, do we do this DevSecOps journey, in the cloud environment? Is it better there or not? Things like that. I just know you're not alone in a lot of those things. And there are a lot of entities that are getting better and better at this. And so, yeah, including, if you want to reach out to myself, please reach out. I got plenty of folks that have gone through it, and I just kind of want to leave you guys with that, that, you're not alone in the push towards a modern way of pushing capability.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. And over to Nicole next.
Well, thank you. So I learned about the DORA metrics. Thank you for that. Things that I would say to take away, this was a great discussion today, but, it's really key that everybody's a part of security, that, really encouraging that mindset that it's everyone's job to secure an organization's data, and look at, how we can automate and leverage tools. We have some amazing AI capabilities that we can leverage in the cyberspace and really kind of, maximize our workforce, because we all aren't getting more resources. So, really looking at how we can automate and use those smart technologies to help us mature our cyber practices.
Thank you, Nicole. And then Dr. Edwards, some of your key takeaways, as well as things you'd like to see happen in government.
Sure. I truly appreciated the SaaS question, software as a service, and the response, of course, that Chris gave from the FedRAMP perspective as well, and understanding the struggle, I would classify it, that sometimes we have in industry and that we want some capability, but we can't get it through that process. But from a FEMA perspective, I wanted to put out there that we feel very strongly about being able to monitor the services that are in those environments. And we have to come together on this. It's not going to be one side's going to have all, but it's really that telemetry that one receives today when you monitor your environment, some way of getting that same assurance, when we're talking about services in the cloud and software as a service in particular. And I wanted to push a concept and out here, and perhaps some of my industry colleagues will reach out to me on secure by design. And this was the point of, again, truly, we have to find a way, as the applications are being developed, as you win contracts and efforts with our developers, that we truly work together to start in the beginning on the requirements end. And don't let us force you into the stance of having a schedule that's unrealistic, that does not include the security. It sets us all up for a bad ending in the end. And thanks so much to everybody on the continuous ATO. It's on our roadmap as well. And I don't think it's the holy grail any longer, okay, Chris? So we're believers as well in the FEMA space, and we're behind DoD technologically, but we think about the continuous ATO as something we're going to achieve with a few applications and services here into the fourth quarter of this year. So thank you.
Thank you. And Ted, we'll go ahead and end it with you.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsten. The big takeaway is all of the information I gathered from all of our panelists in the audience today. It's obviously being from industry, hearing from the government that they're obviously hitting some of the same pain points that we're seeing from our customers, and discussing on how to best address those, right? It's good to hear that Chris wanted to learn a little bit more about IAST and RASP. Those are excellent technologies that are complementing the foundational pieces of SAST and DAST, which are really, really good tools to add. And then, focusing in on, some of the modern ways to address a lot of these problems that we've been discussing today. I think CISA actually put their first draft out of their zero trust maturity model. If you haven't had a chance to look through that, I think they did a really good job initially of laying out the traditional model of DevSecOps and then talking about the optimal way that people are starting to address that, which is, integrating and automating vulnerability management into your life cycle. So again, I appreciate all the time from the panelists today. It was really good information, and I look forward to continuing the discussion.
Thank you all so much. I know the audience thoroughly enjoyed this. It was extra chatty in the chat today. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Before we go, we have one last poll question. It has to do with how you would like to receive your CPE credits. So please answer this one, how you would like them mailed to you. And I would also like to say that if you want to be more involved in these conversations, we have our working group program at ATARC, which Chris is getting involved in. So you'll be able to interact with him on a more consistent basis. And our other panelists, we'd love to have you involved as well. So we'll have to reach out to you about the opportunity. But yeah, for folks at home, it's open to government, industry, academia, and research organizations. So with that, I would just like to thank our partners again at Invicti. Ted, it's been a pleasure having you on this panel. We hope to have you back again soon. And thank you all again at home for joining us. And we would like to highlight our next event that's coming up on January 13th at the same time of 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you would like to join us for that, please go ahead and register. And then for our panelists, if there's any place that you would like our audience to connect to you with, maybe you don't want to put your email in the chat, but if you are active on LinkedIn or Twitter or however you interact with the community, make sure to post that there in the chat as well. But thank you all again. Really appreciate the time, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week. Bye.
Thank you, Kirsten. Have a good day, everyone.